After being a plumber for 21 years, I've made plenty of mistakes, but one mistake stands out the most. And today I'm going to share this with you, and it's actually changed the way I look at work, and it's actually changed all of the way I actually approach my life. So let's get into it. So my early days of being a plumber, I was with the old school. The people that don't post because social media wasn't about then. We do the jobs, we get it done, we crack on, we move on, and we get paid. But the time we're in today has changed drastically, and I no longer work for that same company. I've got my own company. I needed to put myself out there. I needed to make sure that I had a digital footprint. But there's this whole point of putting yourself out there, which was daunting, worrying. You had a lot of people online talking stuff. The comment sections were going crazy. People were getting backlash, and you just didn't know if you was doing the right thing. But I know now that that was the biggest mistake for me to do, which was second guess myself and worry about putting myself out there. Because for all of the comments, when people would comment on sometimes your videos, tell you you're not doing something right, tell you messed up, those times you will learn from those points, because you will think to yourself, how do I get better? And this understanding of how to get better, learning from your mistakes and not worrying about putting yourself out there, was something which was on my shoulders for a long time. I can't express how anxious it made me feel at some points, because when someone would comment, you'd think, I'll have to jump on a defensive one. You don't. They might not be saying anything which might be negative. They might be saying an inside joke or something like that, and you just don't get it. So I had to readjust to being online, because there are a lot of eyes on you. And at this point, I've not been used to having so much eyes on me, especially just me. So I thought to myself, I don't know if this is the thing for me, but let me keep with it, because this is something which I want to do. But are there going to be any benefits from any of these things? At the beginning, I just didn't know, because I thought to myself, let's put yourself out there. Let's see how it goes. You can only see, you can't predict the future. So I didn't, and I never tried to put too much emphasis on it. I just wanted to make it, be happy, and put it out there. But there had to be a little bit more structure to putting myself out there, because I wanted it in turn to end up as a business card which was online for people to see of me, of the services, what I do. But again, we're going to come into the level of critiquing your work at some point, and that gave me one of the biggest lessons which I needed to get within being a plumber, which was allowing people to critique my work, so I was gonna get better at my work, what I was delivering. That's the first lesson. So now I'm going to be talking about the mistakes which I made. The mistakes start from missharing information which might not be correct, right? There's many times we thought something was right when it comes to explaining it, but the way you've delivered it might be wrong, because you're using the wrong words in context, but you put the post out already. So unless somebody tells you on social media, you're going to have to take it down, because it doesn't make sense. That's happened to me before, and I've had to just bite the bullet and say, oh, do you know what? I'm going to delete the post. I'm going to take it down. It doesn't matter about the views. Let's be right and be fair with what we put out. So at some point, I started to go back and make sure that I was reading through my posts and making sure all of the information was as correct to my knowledge as I could, unless I had a textbook to hand, which I would quote something maybe out of the textbook, and that would be quite precise. But sometimes you would have people who would challenge what you're saying, which is understandable, because you're going to get that online with loads of different personalities. What I was sometimes nervous about is people challenging what you know, innit? because we all have an ability of retaining information and understanding things. But I have a good understanding that there are people who are better than you at information keeping or understanding and reciting information which is precise, because they maybe do what you're saying every single day and they might be like, that doesn't make sense. Nobody wants to be called out like that, and I'm sure that can happen to anybody when you're coming into a brand new field and just giving your experience, because there might be someone who is more experienced than you who doesn't like talking, and he's going to wait for that, or she's going to wait for that moment until you speak so they can speak over you. It happens. You just have to kind of get used to it and grow a little bit of thick skin. So sometimes I think that sharing information and stuff like that obviously will build a good community, but you've got to get to that point where it's good information to share and helpful information to share. So finding out that medium, what people needed to know and what I knew and what I thought was necessary for my videos. You know, it was hard to try to find that medium to do with content, but I managed to have to keep on tweaking whatever I was doing, because at one point I was getting bored of it, but at another point I still wanted to make sure it was interesting for people to watch and to consume as well. And as well, they got it, what I was talking about, because it's not always interesting. So I have to make it entertaining to some degree, but keep it to the point when it comes to the information and the delivery as well. That's something I really struggled with. And I made a few mistakes, I'll be honest, but I had to get better. And again, I tell people, I turned to the textbooks and I turned to Google to be able to cross-reference the information which I knew, so it was right. Because I had a few people that called me out a few times, and yeah, it was okay, because it weren't massive things, but it was possibly a post when I was tired or something like that, or a post when I wasn't concentrating and I didn't really overview the content before I put it out. I rushed to put it out. Mistake number one. Turning point for me was really at a point when I started seeing a lot of other people on social media doing the things which I wanted to do as a plumber, but I wasn't actually putting myself out there yet. So I had to learn from them and network with those types of people, because that was the crowd or the audience which I wanted to be in. And it was something which I saw as really cool, even though it was all over the world. You know, I think my first real person who I started watching religiously was Mechanical Hubs. So he is a influencer from USA, and again, I think he's a plumber by trade. Does a lot of work. I found his work fascinating. I've always thought to myself, you know what, this is something which I want to do, but do it with my twist on it, but UK style. And I started watching his content, started becoming part of that community in America. Big thank you out to World Plumbers, Ryan. And I met loads of plumbers online from all over the world, America, Australia, and it ended up me having a strong network of international plumbers, which was, for me, it was just like, wow, I now know so many different plumbers all over the world, and they have heard of me as well, which is amazing. Now I just need to make a mark for myself, which is my style of content, and keep making it so I can get better and better, because everybody's content who I saw at that particular time was different. Some people done jobbing, some people were doing day in your life, other people were just talking to the camera but telling their experience, and it was all knowledgeable stuff which I felt, wow, people really need this in life. This is really going to help. What can I do? This is the part where I reflect. So putting yourself out there and learning from others always helps you be a better plumber, helps you be a better engineer, whatever you're going down, because we don't always know best. There is different ways that all of us have learned the trade, and there's things which we can pick up from each other. I've learned so many different things from watching people online through my Instagram account, who has now got 10,000 followers on it. But before, I was just a person who was just watching and soaking up information from plumbers all over the world, which had experience, which I thought was so necessary for me to be a better person. So at some point, I started sharing some of my experiences with my community online. And I want to say this from now, is that a plumber that makes mistakes, yeah, isn't a bad plumber. A plumber that makes mistakes and doesn't learn from their mistakes starts to become a bad plumber. But a plumber that makes mistakes and learns from their mistakes, you will start to get better, because you will realize that making mistakes is normal. So normalize making mistakes, not just in the classroom, because I've come from the classroom and an academic background, and I'd be very open with people and say to them, it's okay to make mistakes. People definitely do flood people's houses. It's definitely not intentional, but you can make sure that you do not make those mistakes going forward in the future. There's nothing wrong with learning from your mistakes. I've made mistakes, and I feel that when I go into the room and I'm teaching our next generation of plumbers as a plumbing lecturer, I tell them that, you know, make your mistakes now. And if you get the floor wet, don't worry about it, because it happens. You're going to learn how to tidy up. That's what you're going to do. And you're going to be a good tidy upper, and you're going to be a person that doesn't make it wet everywhere. Hopefully not. I know you're not. But just learn from your own mistakes, innit? That's the whole point of what I'm saying to people. I think that people expect us tradespeople to be a polished, finished product when we're not sometimes, and we're still at the point of learning, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is that time when I tell you about a story where I made a mistake. So at a point when I was putting myself out there through social media, I was getting quite a lot of jobs, right? Got a job in King's Cross. The lady said the pump's not working. So I went there and I said, don't worry, I'll be able to sort it for you. And that was the lesson to remember, is that you don't know if you can sort it. But I kind of told this person I can sort it. So when I got there, they said they had no central heating and the pump has packed up. They had underfloor heating. And this pump, it was a Gramfroth pump, but it was red and black, I'm sure it was. And basically I took a small video of it and put it on my story, and someone messaged me and said, that pump is patented. You won't be able to order that pump from Gramfroth. It's only the person who patented the pump can order it. Aha, made a mistake. And I thought to myself, do you know what? It's something which I've learnt from. At the same time, if I see something again like that, then I'll do my research and find out first. And I maybe won't be so quick to tell someone I can sort it, because I'll have a look sounds like a more reasonable answer to understanding what you're looking at, instead of saying, yeah, I can sort it. And it happens to all of us as well. So I think there's nothing lost in that. At this part of the video, I would always ask you guys, have you ever held yourself back in any way? And what did you learn from it? Because you're listening to my story now, and I'm always interested to know what you learned from my story, but also what you learned from yourself by holding yourself back. What was the outcome? What happened? Let me know in the comment section below, because I always do read every single comment. Mistakes are part of growth. Putting yourself out there is essential to today, because as you can see, after 21 years, I'm still putting myself out there. It's been positive. I'm going to tell you about some of the projects which I have been in. So I've been a main model for Skills Saw. They're the first person to make the first skill saw, the American brand. I've also been a model for Ox Tools. If you go onto Amazon, you can check that out. I've also been a model in a British Airways advert, a VW advert, which is on TV at the moment. And I've been a model for Regatta Workwear. and just finished a collaboration with Lucozade. So I wouldn't say to you that putting yourself out there is bad. It's a good thing. It can open so much doors, and it's actually brought so much business to my business, Mr. London Plumber. So if this story has made any sense to you, it's made you laugh at any point, or it's just made you think to yourself, you know what, I could do with putting myself out there, and you could see that this is not a mistake, this is something that I should have done ages ago, and the things which I worried about are so minute, but they play a role. But look at what I've created, and what you can create by putting yourself out there. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate you if you dropped a like or subscribed, and also let me know about your stories in the comment section, because I want to hear from you, and you lot support my channel. So I'm going to support you by reading your comments and obviously making some type of follow-up video about this, because I feel that it's my way of connecting with you and me saying to you, this was a mistake, but look where we ended up. Like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next upload.